Oh, hello, everybody. Reanimated here. This is Stuart. I'm in California again, and back to the east has gone HA Conrad. Good morning, HA.
Good morning. I'm really sad that we're not podcasting in your little podcast hideaway. That was
Indeed.
really fun.
Thank you. Yeah, we had fun, didn't we? It was a good podcast, and it was what better to talk about in a in-person 400th episode, but The Ones Who Live, episode one. And so we're back for episode two this week, and there is not a whole ton of news. I was looking for updates on some projects that we're excited about and couldn't really find much out there. The only news I was able to kind of scrape together was that AMC is happy about the millions of viewers that it's getting through The Ones Who Live. Apparently 3 million during the premiere. Um, which I mean, if you think back I mean, like before the
Oh,
streaming heyday, that is a
I know.
pretty low number compared to what it was pulling in. Like, I feel like 17 million wasn't that weird of a number for Walking Dead at some point, or certainly double
But
digits.
everything has changed with the
Yes.
stream. So I do think that that's an impressive number given where the show is, where all the numbers had kind of dropped off. Though I don't think it should, and I'm sure this is why they wanted to do this show, but Rick and Michonne are two of the strongest characters. People love them. Although they sometimes have, I feel like Rick sometimes had like a love-hate relationship with the audience, depending on what kind of
How
weirdness
crazy
they
he
were.
was. Yeah.
I feel like Michonne's always been beloved. I may be wrong, but I've always just she's always been that character that I you always want to see more of. And
Remember her first
uh,
season on the show, season three, though? She was kind of self-destructive in her vengeance plotline.
yeah, but she was still cool. And I mean, you know,
Yeah,
had
I mean,
the
she took the
on
governor's eye out, so
Big the governor's eye out. Like she was just a very cool character, and Denai Guerrera is just insanely cool. So like I'm not shocked that people want to watch that, but I will also say that Andrew Lincoln and Denai Guerrera have just a great chemistry. These characters have great chemistry, and they definitely have not lost that. So I'm, curious to see how the rest of the season goes, but that whole the search for each other and the separation and all of that, I think is very satisfying to be able to see them together again. Although I think it's a lot more complicated and deliberately so. So, yeah, so pretty excited about this. It seems like everybody is. But yeah, there's not other than this, there isn't a ton of news out there.
nope. We
There's
know that there's some projects cooking. It's just that they're not ready for updates yet. So I guess we'll just keep an eye on it. There was one other movie that was announced as far as dropping on Screambox, called We Are Zombies, which is a horror comedy. And so we'll keep an eye on that and see if that's something we can review when we're done with this current stretch. But yeah, it does feel like a bit of a quiet time, but it's deep winter. It's not a time that a lot of people are thinking about zombies.
Yeah, the only thing I saw up there was like a listicle about the best fast zombie movies ranked. And, I'm gonna spoil it for all of you. 28 Days Later is number one. And there's other things in there like Train to Busan and all that kind of thing. I don't know why they felt they need to rank these, but it's there on Screen Rant. And it's what's kind of weird about it though, it's like the fast zombie movies just means really all the recent zombie movies. Although they did put Dead Alive in there, and that's a pretty early fast zombie movie. So I didn't, I never really count that one. But that's one of Peter Jackson's first sort of bigger projects. So anyway, but I'm fully comfortable talking about the second episode of The Ones Who Live. What do you think?
Yeah, this is they don't break any bones. It's a Michonne story for the first 37 minutes. And so we start up with kind of an odd cold open.
Mm.
I'm not sure why they chose this little vignette to play out in the cold open and then again later, with the gas man in the horde.
Yeah, that was kind of weird.
Like, it's cool. And then of course I was feverishly Googling like what is the the relevance of the gas man, and what does it say on his thing? It's like, let me help you, gas man. Um, but there's nothing to that as far as I can find, unless it's like deep lore.
Yeah, the
I
only
didn't
the
get it.
only thing I couldn't figure out is why, and again we can talk about this a little later as we get to that scene, but he was just sort of it felt like it was a lot more significant, so I did the same thing, so great minds think alike, and I just couldn't find anything that was like super, enlightening. So anyway, but we'll talk more about him I guess in a bit, except
Yep.
it's a very like graphic novel kind of cold open, just even the way they're showing him with the t-shirt and everything like that. So that was I I thought that was really weird. But anyway,
But you're
it
right.
goes
It is very like I had not put that together that it is basically like a graphic novel introduction. But then you kind of get to see that scene play out again in
right. So then it feels like it has more significance, I guess.
well, then it certainly does because what you see what happens when the gas man explodes.
Right.
But yeah, curious. So, but that's the cold open is basically the gas man getting hit by a rocket, one of what we think are Michonne's screaming rockets, and I guess she does shoot that one. After the credits, we have a close up of or it kind of resolves into a close up of Michonne's face explaining how she came to be there. And she's talking to the leader of this caravan community, which we've been waiting years to find out more about. And then I guess it's kind of like one of those don't meet your heroes
Yeah.
scenarios where they're kind of lame. They're just kind of a lame community of people who never stop moving. I mean, in that granted like bad sort of middling CGI establishing shot of their community, there's thousands of them, right? Like moving in this very military column sort of thing. In the close-ups, it's more like, yeah, there's like five or six cars, a bunch of people on horses, a bunch of people walking just down a street, not
Right.
not like 30 abreast.
And not super fast and just kind of doing this caravan thing. And they have, we learned very quickly that they have these specific rules, which is like, for the greater group of people to survive, you have to leave people behind. You can't sort of go off on rescue missions for single people. Like it's the collective that's important. And this particular rule is grating to somebody like Michonne, who always goes after the extra person, and in fact did in this case. And it turns out to be the sister and boyfriend of I think, leader of this group, or one
The
of the
sis
leaders of this group.
Certainly the sister of the leader and that woman's boyfriend, not the
Oh,
leader's
sorry.
boyfriend. But yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, basically, yeah. I'm just quibbling. That's exactly what it is. But it doesn't really get her anywhere with this woman who is nice and tries to recruit Michonne.
Yeah.
But Michonne is just like, I don't not stop for people. That's crazy. What are you talking about? So
Right.
that doesn't work out.
Yeah. Uh,
Um,
but
yeah,
then this
it's very
scene,
reminiscent of the One Ring. Did you ever remember the plot line in that where there's that whole population of like, you ever seen that show?
no.
Was it the Rings of Power? Whatever the Lord of the Rings show
Oh, I
on.
started to watch it. I did not get into it.
Okay.
Anyway.
Well, there's a whole culture of like pre-hobbits who also have this same philosophy of if you can't keep up, you get left behind, and that's
Oh
that.
yeah, I did see enough of it. Yeah, there, and honestly, weirdly, it's also a caravan in a similar fashion. So interesting. I wonder if they're, yeah. Anyway, um,
Well, I mean, I
that's
think they established that they don't stop even when Michonne met those two.
Dave, you're still
And
going.
yeah, and they kept the same actors too from like years ago, which is just
I
like,
know.
okay, yeah, you got to be in the show for 5 seconds in 2019 or whatever year that was, and now again you get like several scenes. Congratulations, I guess.
Yeah, but I mean, this scene does do one very important thing, and it's to introduce the character of Nat. Um,
Right.
and Nat is played by Matthew Jeffers, and he is just super well, he's very feisty, he's very angry, and really this just shows that there is a lot of there's a lot of questioning about this particular rule, because he was very upset. He I don't really love how they play this scene because it's obvious that there's more than just Michonne in the room. And he's all upset that the sister and her boyfriend, I think it's Aiden and her boyfriend are gone, and that it's the leader's sister, and he gets like all riled up, and then suddenly he like turns around, he's like, "Oh my gosh, you're alive, and you saved them," and it felt a little contrived. I don't know how you felt about that,
Yeah,
but it was
it's
a
a
little,
little bit. You're willing to overlook it
yeah.
for the introduction of who you can tell is going to be an entertaining character,
And
right?
he's good. He's really, really good. I don't know if you've seen him in some other things.
No, new to
I
me.
have not, though I do know he was in this show New Amsterdam for a while, I think as a main character. I'm not sure. But I thought he was like he really bursts onto the scene here in like full star fashion. So and we'll talk more later, but I was like, oh no, I like him a little too much. And so I was like, he's probably done for.
I mean,
And
like
that's kind of the thing.
this is part of the comeuppance of everybody not listening to the leader of the convoy people's
Right.
rules, because they're all dead.
Yep. Yep.
I mean, most of
Spoiler
them
alert.
die. Most of
Spoiler
them
alert.
die. Well, spoiler alert for this episode. We're talking about it. So most of them are dead. I don't know how much time has passed before they all are like gassed into death, but it feels like a couple days. I don't know. They have traveled through almost to their destination by the time that happens. So maybe it's been weeks. Nat at least is able to hold out for another year. But
Right.
they basically all come to bail out Michonne, having been shown the way by her that leaving people behind is not the right thing to do. This was also a little bit contrived that they give her so much credit for
Right.
doing what I'm sure must happen has happened at other times to their community, that someone, an outsider, has been like, I'll help you. I mean, I'm sure that also, given it's The Walking Dead, outsiders have preyed on them and taken advantage of them and killed them and attacked them. But in this case, yeah, Michonne saves two people, and they're like, "Oh my God, there's another way of doing things. Thank you for showing us the light." And I'm like, I mean, okay,
Yeah, but I think a lot of this was more about Michonne's journey and the fact that even in like it took her a while to get into she's always been that independent person that goes off and does her thing. I mean, even when we're first introduced to she's like, okay, I'm in a zombie apocalypse. My loved ones are dead, so I'm gonna make them into these walkers that follow me, and they're gonna protect me, and then this is what I'm gonna do. And she was all like solo, right? And it always takes her a bit to sort of be part of that community. And even now, like she left her community to go and find Rick. So she's got these independent qualities, which in part make her an amazing leader. But she also really has a hard time asking for help. And in this case, she didn't fully like ask for it. Oh, she kind of did, but she really just wanted a horse to get going. She wasn't necessarily looking for a ragtag group of
she definitely was not looking for a ragtag.
orders. And in this case, it's like she's going into a territory she does not know what she's going to find. She knows something is weird about the fact that Rick is been, that he's out there and that he can't get to her. So she knows that there's some strange elements happening. And so to have this sort of big group of people, I mean, I think it's one thing to have Aiden and her boyfriend and Nat following versus a bigger group like happens. Like basically she gets almost like her own little mini caravan behind her.
They have like 8 cars, dozens of people by the
Right. So this is seems like a weird thing to be doing when you're going on this particularly dangerous mission, but and she does try to tell Aiden to go back. Like she does try to convince her, but I will say the scene where all of this happens is a pretty cool scene, and this is when we come back to the gas man, but this introduces some of Nat's better qualities and his genius, honestly, and sort of how he has developed tools to be able to live in this world and to not necessarily like control the walkers, but to at least make their life more livable so it's less dangerous. So I thought that and that really big that big like scene in the field with the great migration of the walkers, and we find that there's this whole migration thing happening, so that's another piece of this.
Yeah.
Um,
And we've seen this scene before, or
yeah,
parts of
yeah,
it.
this was like the big thing they've kind of like teased with Michonne in her armor, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And
Charging an army, a literal like horizon to horizon field of zombies. Yeah.
like insurmountable, like just a massive herd. And you know, part of it when I was watching this, I'm like, why are you going closer? Um, because there's no way you're going to get through this herd. Like you've seen things like this before. She definitely has. She knows that the only way really to survive something like this is to go around it or to try to figure, and she kind of does try to figure out that way and it kind of goes wrong. So she uses one of Nat's little weapons, which is to basically start an explosion, turn the herd. And I think her plan was probably to go around them once the bulk of them got like away. But um, the gas man got in her way. And again, this is the part, and maybe I'm missing, Stuart, if I'm missing something, tell me, but I didn't understand why the gas man was still going toward her and not toward the explosion.
That's a great point. He's the only one who isn't going toward the explosion.
Right.
He's going toward her and he's on fire and he's covered in gasoline, which is why he explodes, which is, yeah, I guess. But he explodes with enough force to propel his head hard enough, like 50 feet or however far away they are from each other, to knock her out off of her horse. And things look bad.
And he's
And
also created an explosion that then turns the herd again towards her.
yeah,
But I guess part of me was like, is this one of the, I mean, it looks like he was rigged up in this way by someone, or like he is maybe a little different. I mean, is this one of the French type zombies that is
so
just,
this
or,
is a question people are asking on the internet, not about him specifically, but about the ones that were on fire from last episode.
yeah.
Are these a special variety? I don't think that they are. I don't think we've seen any more climbers or on flambés or whatever they were calling them in the Daryl Dixon show.
But
Uh,
even in the Daryl Dixon show, they weren't like, they weren't like fully on fire. They were just
no,
like chemical
they had
burns.
black veins that would like turn
Yeah.
into acid, basically.
Right. And they were
So
burning like chemical burns, not
yeah,
like fire burns. So
right.
this feels weird to me. But again, he looked really cool and I was just wondering what significance it was. So at least I feel a little bit better that I'm not the only one thinking that. So um
Yeah, but so then she's bailed out by two large pink slash purple explosions, one on either side of this valley, and then it like parts the zombies like the Red Sea, kind of a cool visual. But then and then a bunch of people are, you know, behind her waving at her and offering her beers, and then they just kind of chill out. And that's when she tells Aiden that she should go back because she also finds out that Aiden is pregnant.
yep.
And you're just like, ah, oh, geez.
Yeah.
I'm trying to find Rick. I'm on a mission, like a special ops mission here, and a pregnant Aiden is not who should be with Michonne, but that she really wants to see this reunion. Aiden is a bit of an optimist, starry-eyed.
Yeah.
Doesn't play out well for any of them. But honestly, they they have like their way of surviving in the apocalypse. It seems like it's worked for them. They don't feel like a bunch of know nothings. I don't think any of them could have seen what was coming.
Well, I don't think so either. Although, again, I think Michonne has somewhat of a better idea that this is going to be pretty rough. And she does, I mean, look, there are some really nice moments here. She gets rescued, and there's this whole thing where, like, yay, I have a little posse around me. And she's wearing like the sort of fireside scene that they have where she's drinking a beer and Nat knows what she wants and really being cared for by this group of people that she honestly didn't really ask for. But she really appreciates it. She's like this like cozy blanket on. And then you can see that she's really pausing and really trying to like, you know, get Aiden to stop this sort of nonsense and wants her to go back to the other thing, but she also sees that she's not going to convince her. There's another little piece of this though, and that's they're talking about and this comes up a few times, and you and I have talked a little bit about this. Like it's an issue because you have to wonder where her not her motivation, but what makes her continue to drive forward, which is like she absolutely wants to bring Rick back. And I think also wants to satisfy if he is indeed dead, needs to know that really for sure. And this doubt and the fact that she has this revelation that he might be out there, this is something she needs to like, she's never going to stop. That's part of her, that's part of who she is. But there's the other part where we have talked about the fact that Judith and AJ are still out, RJ are still out there. And they are really alive, and you know that they're alive and they're in a community, and she is out there and looking for Rick in this way.
Just remember,
And
AJ, that she left Judith halfway through the Whisperer War.
right, like it's not like she left her in a safe spot, right? Like
That's
this
two and
was
a half wars ago from her
right,
people's perspective. There
right,
is no reason. I mean, and we don't get to see her actually speak with Judith. We see her trying to reach her on the radio a lot.
right,
And so one of the through lines of this is, well, toward the end, there's a lot of like, oh, is everybody okay? And she's like, yeah, everybody's fine. I'm like, nah, you don't know that.
right. You
You don't
don't.
know.
Um and so again, there's this idea that she would have left her kids. And again, you know, remember Rick and Michonne have been through an awful lot. There's some of the OGs sort of like, they have this bond. Obviously, they were married. And she, I think, wants to bring him back. She wants to bring him back for Judith and RJ, and I get that too. However, it is a weird thing where, you have multiple people, Aiden, Nat, all saying, like, look, you know that they're alive. You don't know that Rick is. And there's a good chance that you don't come back from this alive. And Nat's actually a little bit more unequivocal about it. He's like, I know how this is going to end.
Well, this is
And
all coming up later after the tragedy.
true,
Until
but
the tragedy, people are like, "Oh, I can't wait to see you get together with Rick again. He's going to be waiting for you at Bridger's Crossing or whatever it's called." But it's not. It doesn't happen that way. And it's so interesting how when the bad thing happens, uh Aiden's last words, we don't actually get to see what they might have been, but her last words to Michonne are, "I was wrong. Don't go to see Rick. Just go home. It's not worth it." Those are like the
not only
thoughts
that,
she's
she says,
having.
go to your kids. That's what she says.
Yeah.
And this is the other, so we have these like themes, and I do think that part of this is to show the different journeys of Rick and Michonne, how Rick, is really kind of trying to hang on, and ultimately he makes the decision to stop escaping for the same reason that Michonne keeps trying, which is you know, I think Michonne thinks she wants to get Rick to keep their family safe ultimately, or like that idea of reuniting the family. Rick stops because he wants to keep them safe because he's basically been threatened by I'm sorry, I'm forgetting his name. Um,
Well, he,
saying that
the dead guy. Yeah, I mean, who
yeah, like
cares at this
basically
point?
saying they know about
Okafor, maybe.
Okafor. They know about, or I know about these people, and
Yeah,
we know about you, and basically that is the one thing that will get Rick to stop is the threat of his family being destroyed. At least in this way, he feels that somehow he can keep them safe, and then Michonne is just not going to stop.
but
And
she
in some way,
does. She does stop in this episode. They're going back to Alexandria at the by the end of the episode, like that. They're because she's calling on the radio, and he's like, "Oh, don't worry, we're going to be in range in another day or two." They have gone back to Virginia,
true,
so
but
they both have given up. So they both, neither of them can hold that against each other in a way. Like that's honestly a nice bit of symmetry.
true. I mean, she saw, yeah, it's a bit of symmetry, but when push comes to shove, and we see this like as she gets reunited with Rick, and she really is, I mean, this is like honestly, I think it's kind of the cool thing about this episode is that like she gets reunited with Rick, but he's all in CRM gear. This is the group that has basically killed her friends, and she saw like just honest devastation, ridiculous devastation in a world where there's not a lot of people. And I have a question about that too. I mean, I know they were probably getting close to Philadelphia, but this is like a group of people that CRM always talks about how they need resources, right? This is a group of people that have survived. Like they just gonna kill them outright without trying to like kind of harvest some of them for their cause. Because it's not like they have, you know, unlimited people resources.
Well,
And
they certainly are willing to expend resources on killing these a few dozen people with not
yeah,
only a jet fuel, because the way they die is from an Apache helicopter dropping chlorine gas canisters on their convoy in this little town. So they spend a ridiculous amount of resources to kill these people who are then going to be reanimated as zombies. And maybe the CRM doesn't care about zombies because they have their methods. They've got their consignee human wall around their hidden
yeah.
city. So maybe that just doesn't matter to them, but I can't imagine that jet fuel is something that they're like, yeah, we got plenty of that. Oh, chlorine gas, no problem.
Right. And this is a thing that you and I've talked a lot about, which is that, they're basically sending out all these, they're using a ton of fuel, they're using a ton of resources to protect in a world where there isn't, I mean, there's some things to protect from, but if you're going out further and further afield to like, I don't know, it just feels like a huge waste of resources. And I really want to know a little bit more about their infrastructure and a little bit about how they make these decisions. Like, are these just sort of, and this I think seems like it, are these just sort of like general perimeter checks? Like, hey, we're going to fly around here, and if we see a threat, we take care of it? Or is this, we knew that this group of people was getting close, so we're doing this targeted thing just to take it out because we're not going to even bother to see like who these people are, whatever. We're just going to take it out and eliminate the threat to Philadelphia, which I'm
Yeah.
assuming they had to be sort of close because they're like in Jersey, right? So, I don't know. It just feels like a mismanagement of resources that are precious and that are not unlimited. So again, this is just a thing that I have a slight nit about.
It's an annoying MO for your baddies to have, like kill first, ask questions later, like kill first, but then also send helicopters out to Virginia to pick up a bee. What?
Right.
Like this still
Well,
doesn't
and
make any
again, this
sense.
is this is the other part. It's like that's what I'm talking about. Like, because I bet there's quite a few bees amongst this like group of people. They seem like worker bees. They don't seem like super into, I mean, yeah, they broke away from the main caravan, but it's not like they're all like they want to be led. You know what I mean? Like so
Yeah.
anyway, that stuff is just really like troubles me. But then, I guess we should talk a little bit. I'd like to talk a little bit about Nat though as a character before we get into sort of the Rick and Michonne stuff, which um again, I'm really sad but not shocked that they did this because this is exactly the kind of thing that these kinds of shows do. Um and Walking Dead does specifically, but I thought he really did an incredible job at like they did an incredible job at developing this character. They have some really great scenes between him and Michonne and talking about his past and who he is and um the fact that he exists and he exists in this world and he is honestly triumphant in the sort of gadgets and as he calls them toys that he creates.
Yeah.
And this is all part and parcel of who he was before in a way that sometimes you don't see that with other characters. Like he is a survivor and it isn't just that he is surviving, but he is trying to like actually live in a somewhat constructive way. Like he's creating these things so that they can be at least safe with the walker. So he has all these what they call scream sticks and his I don't even know what would you call his little weapons. I mean, they're kind of little missiles, right?
Those are the scream sticks.
Those are the scream sticks. And so
Yeah.
they create these
They're those
distractions.
like rocket. Yeah. At first, it's like in a rifle style that Michonne is using, but then later he has this really cool backpack mounted version of it that is unerringly accurate. He fires three at a moving helicopter and hits three times. Like
Yep.
that's so difficult to shoot down a helicopter with an RPG, but he's able to do it no problem. So he's a
Yeah,
hell of a
and
shot.
he's a good shot, but also he's like, he picks his friends very carefully. He really, he reluctantly admits that he likes people and things like that. He's like this little misanthrope that I really enjoy. And he talks a lot about his past and about his stepdad and how he helped him get to where he is just in terms of like inventing and being constructive versus destructive. Although I would say in this world he does a little bit of both. Um, And the thing I really liked about his interaction with Michonne is that he really has no bones about telling her what he thinks, and these are unhappy truths that he has to share with her. But
Well,
he is absolutely like he is full of conviction,
yeah.
but he's still dedicated to her. Do you know? So it's like this thing where he's like, I know how this is going to end, but I'm going to stick to you like glue kind of thing. And
Well,
I
again,
really,
I think he kind of works to persuade her to give up this quest. And so by the end, like by the time they find the bodies in Bridger's Crossing, after they've gone through their whole healing montage,
Mhm.
because first we have to lose everybody in the convoy, including Aiden and Bailey, which is a hard couple scenes. Getting chlorine gas apparently has destroyed their lungs, and so they need an entire year, maybe more, to heal in this furniture
Right.
store. Like that's part of what we're going through in this episode. And then they go to Bridger's Crossing and they find a sunken cruise ship that was apparently a super cool looking zombie survival area for a while, which I wish we could have seen more of that
I
storyline.
know, right?
The piles of bodies where they're like none of these bodies have shoes on, and all she has are like Rick's cowboy boots and she's just trying to like she's like looking through the burned bodies, which are unrecognizable, to see if she can find Rick. And
Mhm.
then they're sitting there, and Nat is basically like, "Look, you can still believe he's alive, but you should go home and be with your kids." And I
Yep.
think eventually that gets through to her.
Yep.
And so that's when they are like, I think pretty shortly after that, we have a scene of them walking through, back toward Alexandria in some respect. And I think Rick had said that they were on the southern coast in the previous episode when they were on a mission,
Hmm.
something like that. So I think that they were, they set it up where Rick was not near Philadelphia when his helicopter got shot down, and Nat was able to shoot it down. And it's the first one goes into the helicopter and he's like, "Oh damn, it was a dud," but we know that's just in Okafor's rib cage. Like it's
Yep.
and eventually it does explode. But
And
yeah,
it's somewhat ironic, just that whole thing. But
well,
anyway,
all these cool characters that are getting introduced and are also just
yeah,
taking each
yeah, it's
other out.
basically another one. Yeah, there you go.
Yep.
But it really, I did like how all the build up here, and you get to the point where she and Rick get reunited, and there is that energy, and there's also that like a question mark,
Big
because he
question mark for me.
a
Big
big
question
question mark,
marks.
and um, he's in the CRM outfit, and there is a heartbreaking and horrible moment with Nat where he's just like he realizes that they're reunited. There's a little bit of a WTF, how did this happen kind of a thing.
Yeah.
And then he gets taken out and horribly, but this is and it's heartbreaking. It really is. And one of the things though he says before he dies is like he asked Michonne if she's sure that Rick is the same or who he is because he's obviously in the CRM stuff. And so I think she's trying to figure that out too, right?
Yeah.
Um, but you know, that sort of closes the story on with him, but he was a fantastic character, fantastic actor. I would love to see him in so much more. He was great. Um, but then we have the Rick and Michonne interactions here, and immediately and this is their thing. They get into like crises together, they figure a way out, and I do think that she seems like, okay, this is still him because he's immediately like, hey, I got to give you the Cliff Notes version here because we're going to survive this, but we got to basically play act along the way, and these are the rules. And so he gives her a very short list of things she's got to do to fool the CRM into the fact
Yeah.
that she's on A. And
Which is all like super beige flags or red flags should be for Michonne anyway, because their first interactions when they've recognized each other, they've gotten past the shock before
Mhm.
Nat dies, basically. His first question is Judith okay? Doesn't mention RJ. Still hasn't met nobody has
Yeah,
mentioned their
nobody's
mutual
mentioned.
child, the
That's
child that they
weird,
had
right?
together, the child of both of their loins has
Yeah.
not been mentioned in any of this stuff. But he's like,
No.
is Judith cool? My daughter with my previous wife, or maybe not my daughter, actually Shane's daughter with my previous wife, not
Right.
related to either of us. Is she good? And she's like, yeah, I'm sure she is. And then the biggest red flag of all the red flags before we get to the you gotta have your hands up. I have to be pointing a gun at you is I'm not with them. And he doesn't look believable when he says that. He's looking down at the ground. Like he's exhibiting like beaten Rick body language. And so I think Michonne knows him well enough. She's seen him go into crazy times before.
I just want to point out about RJ though. Does Rick even know that RJ's like exists?
Wait, was RJ not born?
I don't think he was.
Uh,
So maybe Rick doesn't know about RJ.
wait. RJ was introduced in season 9.
But I don't think Rick knows about RJ.
No,
Maybe
he
he
has
knew.
to.
I don't know. I don't know if he knew that she was pregnant. Maybe he knew she was pregnant, but then you would think he would ask about that, right?
If I mean that is the only reasonable explanation for why nobody's talking
However,
about him.
don't you think that Michonne might like be like, hey, but hey, we also have a son, but again, maybe that's the stuff she's saving for after, right?
Yeah, like she's got to be like, by the way, you have another child. I find that hard to believe though on some level, but it does kind of make sense that RJ is basically a 6-year-old when the time jump happens, and Judith is now a little ass kicker with a sword.
Yeah. I don't think he knows.
So
I don't think he knows about him.
and Michonne was heavily pregnant. Wasn't she pregnant in that interstitial episode with the crazy lady and the killer kids?
I don't know.
I think she was.
Mm. So anyway, yeah. So I don't think he knows about him because I
Rick's
just
never
can't
met
imagine
RJ.
doesn't know about him at all.
Holy, this is head explode time for me. I mean, this is so many years ago.
Yep.
Wild.
So anyway, so I think there's that, and that's gonna be and by the way, he doesn't know about him even into this episode. Like she just keeps saying, "I'll tell you after," right? It's like, but she only says something about Judith. What the thing? I don't know. Anyway,
Yeah, she's like us. Is yeah, it's I don't know why. Yeah, she's playing her cards close to her vest, and I think she needs to. She can't totally trust Rick. Although they're
ooh,
happy to see each
that's
other,
true.
I don't think she can trust him, and I think she's smart enough of a character to know that he's not 100% himself, even though she
Right.
says he is.
Well, and the one thing that I will say, just as they were sort of getting ready to be, picked up by the CRM, he asks her, "Hey, do you have any of this stuff related to Alexandria? I need it." And I think he's probably going to destroy it, just like he destroyed everything else, because this was how he basically was keeping them safe. But we don't know that because we don't see what he does with them, right? So there's that part too. Um, all right. So thanks for solving the mystery with me because that was like a big thing. I'm like, what's up with RJ? Is he chocolate?
Yeah, and this
Oh,
this this I probably should have known this too, that Rick never met him because yeah, like it's pretty clear. RJ is 5,
hmm
6 years after Rick disappears, so he's never
yeah.
met him. All right, yeah, moving on.
So anyway, but okay, so they have their quick little and their interaction before CRM picks them up is very much back to their baseline, right? This is back to their factory settings with each other. This is what they do. They solve problems together. They are very much in it together. There's definitely still a little question mark there for Michonne, no doubt. But
Uh,
Rick tells her how to how
yeah,
to deal with this, and she does. And there was a really great moment when the helicopter's coming down, and she's smiling because she's very
yeah,
happy
she's
that
happy. I will also just also want to point out how unrealistic it is that their quick reaction 3 helicopters or however many they've dispatched have gotten there
yeah,
within like 5 minutes of their helicopter getting shot down.
yeah.
That would necessitate all these helicopters just circling them basically the whole time. Like so, there should have been hours and plenty of time for them to get away.
But with the
But
magic of editing, Stuart.
it's the magic of television. They are unable to get away, and even then, Rick would have had to like disguise a body, and there wasn't an extra body for him to disguise because it was like Nats would never have been mistaken for his own
No,
body. So
no. And then there's also the sort of backstory where he basically takes Michonne's katana and says that it had to belong to Nat and that they have to come up with this backstory because
he
the whole
knows that
thing,
this plan is going to fail, though, right? Because
I don't know.
I
Because
mean,
how would Nat
by the end of this episode, Jadis reappears,
Mm.
Jadis, who lived among them, knows who Michonne is. Like none of this plan is going to work as long as Jadis is part of the CRM and has access to in interviews with consignees, I guess, because that's kind of how we're introduced to her again. You knew exactly who that was, right? When you were watching her
Oh
watch the
yeah. Oh
video.
yeah. When the minute they showed the hand, I'm like, oh, Jadis is gonna come back in here and mess up their stuff. But here's the okay. I know we've talked about this so many times, and it's still this huge mystery to me. I still don't understand. Like, I guess Jada's bought her way into the CRM with Rick, this one guy who's like a B, not even a leader, not an A. Like,
But they don't want A's. Like this is also so confusing. There is no such thing as a valuable person
right,
to, for them.
but that's my point. It's like there's a whole community of people that could probably fit that bill, but she gives them Rick. Why? I guess we'll find that out eventually. But yet she is totally into whatever the CRM thing is. She really loves her bit of power. And then now, and it's that she's really focused on like Rick not escaping. Why does she even freaking care? Like
Well,
it's
I
a
liked what they did in this interaction because she also hints at like they have had an agreement. This was not even hinted at in the last
oh
episode.
no.
So we don't really know how many other interactions they've been having since Rick and she have been living in Philadelphia together. Not living together, but living in the same city. She's obviously like a Gestapo CRM person because she talks about investigations while he is, I don't know what he is, special forces, not sure. But there's more to their relationship. They have some sort of ongoing agreement. She's agreeing to keep Michonne's identity under wraps as long as Rick doesn't try to escape. Is kind
Mhm.
of the basis of this agreement that she like threatens him with at the end of the episode. It's quite fascinating. Pollyanna McIntosh continues to be quite good as a villain, and I'm glad that this is what they've translated her character into because and she even makes a reference to how weird she was as a trash person.
Yeah, she does.
She's like, I used to say a lot of weird stuff to you, Rick. Yes, yes, yes. I'm like, yeah, let's not go back to those times. Those were the bad times.
Right. And then there's also, I mean, there's also Michonne makes it through her little interrogation. And we have this reunion in this bunker or whatever it is, like this warehouse with Rick and Michonne, and that's how they sort of like are catching up on the stuff. And we have the moments where Rick is saying, I lost my hand one of the last times I escaped, and she's like, one of the last times, and so there is this moment
Yeah.
where she's like, why did you stop escaping? I am incredibly annoyed that he didn't tell her why. That he didn't tell her he was trapped, as he knows. So this is one of the Walking Dead things that I always find annoying. Like
Yeah.
give the other character the background, because in that case, it's not like she would have been um um like he knows who she is. It's not like she wouldn't have understood that that was the reason. However, maybe he thought she would just go like crazy, which maybe she would, because even in the next moment, she's asking if they can take down the CRM, if they should fight it, and he's like, "Well, we can, but we both die doing it."
Yeah.
And there's also a bit of back and forth because she's like, "Did you have you taken part in these slaughters, like in these like killings?" And he goes, "Other people come back and they do. I don't. We have not really. Have we seen? I mean, we've seen Rick participate in killing walkers. We've seen him. I don't know that we've seen him against real people, have we? So we don't know that that's untrue that he's saying he's not. But I think he is couching a little bit more. He's being a little bit more obtuse about what he actually knows because he knows it's going to upset her, right? I don't know. I don't think
And
he is
he
as
doesn't.
unaware as he's presenting
Oh,
to
you
her.
think so? Maybe. Yeah. Like I said, I don't think we can really trust Rick because an unknown amount of time has passed, at least a year, of him being a willing participant of the CRM.
Right.
Um,
And we do see,
so
I mean, look, we've seen him go and kind of get, we saw him like go on fuel runs. Like we've seen him get resources. We haven't seen him with people other than
yeah,
that one woman we saw in the, whatever, the fuel yard,
and
the one
she's coming
survivor.
back. She's coming back in the next episode. If you saw the look ahead, she
Hmm.
is going after Michonne. to be like, you seem like an A to me, and
Yep.
all this kind of like, how do you hide? How does Michonne hide that she is a
So
badass?
cool. She can't. She's so
Because
cool.
she's killing, I think she's even on the consignee wall and she's killing zombies with like a lot of gusto. And they're
Yep.
like, yeah, nothing, no, this doesn't work.
Yep.
Uh, Funny.
So yeah, so I think he's being a little bit more like veiled in
Yeah.
what he's sharing with her,
Honestly,
which
it's a good writing strategy for this season, because what they've set up is that that he has secrets. She probably less so, and that's maybe a good analog for the audience. We kind of know where Michonne has been. We know what she's been up to, and we understand her motivations, although they're still difficult for me to justify the fact that she's left both of her children and she has
yeah,
no idea if they're okay or not.
right.
Um,
And still she has not connected with him this entire episode that we have seen.
yeah,
So
a year plus that she's been out looking for Rick. But so that also, where does that put us on the timeline of the Prime show?
I'm not sure.
Yeah, we'll have to do some research. Not unlike our art. Does RJ and Rick do RJ and Rick know each other? Research. Because
Don't think so.
I feel like there's still some time that they have to make up in the Commonwealth, but we'll see.
Yeah, and then yeah, so more to come and we'll see what happens in this next episode. Again, though, I think the chemistry and the like connection between Rick and Michonne is really strong and awesome. I do think that the whole reunion with them in the warehouse was like really well done and also showed some of the questions both of them had. And so I really am looking forward to seeing how this unfolds. I'm very much enjoying this. I hope it continues to stay on the rails, so to speak. And now we have the complication of Jadis in the mix. And so I guess we'll have to see what happens, but I'm really, really enjoying it. I did also want to make mention, I don't know if you saw it, but before this started, there was a whole trailer about Daryl and Carol. And
Oh,
so that's another journey where one of our original characters is going after another one that is supposedly long lost, right?
interesting.
So, so these are the same themes and but kind of different, obviously, because of the different types of characters. Carol and Daryl are not romantically entwined, but they are incredibly bonded. Um, and so I'm wondering, I mean, look, this is me just getting like really probably a little ahead of myself, but I'm wondering if there will eventually be a crossover episode, but that probably can't happen unless somehow Michonne and Rick end up in Europe. So um yeah, I can dream, right?
Yeah, well, that is something to ponder. But until more episodes of this season happen, are there a couple seasons of this show planned, or is it just the one that we know of?
I think just the one so far, but I would imagine there has to be more than one, right?
Well, we
I have
will.
not seen any news about a season two yet, but it's, and then I also before we kind of wrap up, I don't there was a whole little thing, they always do the after show and there was like interviews with Scott Gimple and a few with Denai Guerrera, and they really were talking about how the three of them plotted this out and were really excited about that and about doing this particular show. So I really I love the fact that they are very involved in this and maybe that's how they got them hooked in these two actors to give them much more creative license in this and with the character. So I kind of like that idea. But I wondered what
Yeah.
you were thinking about it. It was kind of interesting to hear Scott Campbell talking about it.
I honestly did not watch the after show this time because
Okay.
this show is dropping. I don't know what time, but I was
Yeah.
happened to be awake at like 5:30 in California on Sunday morning, and I'm like, oh, it's now available. Swear I checked before I went to bed last night on Saturday, and it wasn't there. So I don't know what time this thing is becoming available to watch, but it's not. At least we're not having to wait till Sunday night. You can watch it, I guess, as soon as you're awake on Sunday morning. But why are they dropping it? Like maybe it's at midnight. I certainly was not awake then to check, but it seems like an odd time for them to drop an episode of this show. So either way, I
Yeah.
did not have time before we started to podcast to watch the Scott Gimple stuff.
That's all right. That's all right. I will say that I just did a quick little search, and although they intended this to be really just a one season show, they are, of course, leaving the possibility open for a season two. Of course they are. So I don't know what that means with the end, like where they're going with this storyline, but I think we should probably anticipate that it's a one season show and see what happens, right?
Yeah.
So. So that's the ambiguous thing, you know. And but this is the one part that I really don't love. It's like Scott Gimple was like, anything's possible, even if Rick dies in the last episode, anything is possible.
Yeah.
That's not very encouraging. So anyway,
I think
there
they
we go.
know who the golden geese are now for this show, and
Yeah,
it's
I think they do.
it's not Shambliss and Goldberg.
It is not. But in any case, I really enjoyed watching this. This was just a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to the next episode, in a way that I haven't been for, a while with some of these other spinoffs that we've seen.
Yeah, these
Um,
these are, they have the same consistent level of production value that Walking Dead has always had, but the story writing has sometimes, ebbed and flowed. These are so far good. I think we nitpicked a little bit this episode just because of some of the motivations I think have been flawed, and they're kind of committed to them. The RJ
they
thing,
are.
that was on me.
It's more that I just want the mystery solved, and I would like some level of like, I don't know, some level of information or like them to expand on things like, hey, this is what, and I know that that's part of it, and they have to kind of keep that tension and that mystery. So we will find some things out later. But that's more, it's just sort of how they've built these characters. I do eventually want to know some of these things and see these things revealed, but
Yeah.
hopefully that will happen as the
Yeah.
season.
I want the reveal of first of all, you have a son. Judith is a badass. Oh, and Uncle Daryl's taking care of them. And if he's not, then
Right.
Carol's going to be taking care of them.
That's that's the that's the one thing is like the big reveal that you have a son or that I left them in the care of Daryl. Right?
Who we know is not taking care of them
Yes,
either.
because he's in Europe.
Yeah.
So anyway, but all good. All right. Well, anything else to add?
No, I think let's just get to next week and so we can, see where this show is going. It's only got 6 episodes. So they're going to be this is the halfway point next week, basically.
We're
Kind of
halfway
wild.
there.
Yeah.
Um,
Thank you for listening, everybody. Please feel free to let us know what your thoughts are. Holler at us, reanimatedpodcast@gmail.com. We're online. You can find our other episodes at reanimated.podbean.com. So thanks a lot, and we'll catch you next time on the show.
yep. Thanks for listening and ciao.
Bye.